I'm sharing the recipe for a classic Italian masterpiece, ragu bolognese. And this isn't just any pasta sauce, this is the heart of Bologna on your plate. By the end of this video, we'll have a nice plate of tagliatelle al ragu. So let's just jump right into it. Every great ragu starts with a sofrito, which is just a fancy Italian word for a mix of onion, carrot, celery, and it's the base for a great pasta sauce. So what I'm gonna do now is start cutting these veggies into small pieces. Now, in Italian cuisine, the sofrito is like the holy trinity of flavor. And now we don't want to rush this step. We're going for soft, golden, and fragrant. I'm gonna get some olive oil into this pan. You can use butter, it's just as classic. And into the pot go the onions, the carrots, and the celery. I'm just gonna get some salt into this now. And I would say that low heat is the key here, and I've got this pan on the lowest heat as I wanna coax out the sweetness from the veggies and I don't wanna scorch them. So after about a few minutes, now it's time to get the pancetta in there, and I'm looking to get some of that fat rendered out and just get a bit of color on the pancetta as well. You can use streaky bacon, but trust me, pancetta makes all the difference. Now I'm just looking to get some of that fat rendered down, and while that's going, we can now turn our attention to the star of the show, and that's the beef. Now I'm looking to get this minced beef seared off in a separate pan just to ensure that I get a nice bit of color on it. This will then be transferred into the other pan along with the mirepoix and the pancetta. So a bit of olive oil on the pan as this has now come up to heat. And in goes the minced beef. I'm just gonna break up the meat as it browns, and just a little tiny tip for you. You wanna take your time with browning the beef, get it all nice seared off and caramelized, as it makes all the difference, and that browning is the key in your final sauce. Tiny bit of salt in there, as the pancetta's got a fair bit of sodium in it, so I'm not gonna overdo it with salt. So I've got a nice bit of color on this beef, and I can now add this in with the mirepoix. And let me tell you, this already is smelling absolutely beautiful. And next up is the wine. You can use white if you prefer. I've got 250 ml of a good quality red wine here, which I'm just gonna add in, and then I'm just gonna let it simmer until the wine is almost evaporated. That red wine has almost completely evaporated, and now is the time for the tomato. Now I'm using passata, which is essentially a tomato puree that's been strained to remove the skins and the seeds, which gives you a smoother texture in your final sauce. You can use a canned tomato and you basically get a more rustic texture. So as I say, I'm using passata, and I'll just add this in, and I'm just gonna add a bit of water to this to get all of that beautiful tomato out of the jar. So we can just give this a stir. And remember, a traditional ragu bolognese isn't overly tomatoey, it's all about the balance. Now mix it all together and lower the heat and let this magic happen, and we are looking at least 2 hours of low and slow cooking. And here's a tip: if it looks like it's drying out, just add a splash of water. You don't need to use any stock. Now I'll just get a lid on it, but I'll leave that lid cracked, and I'll be checking on this ragu every now and again. And as I say, if it's looking dry, I'll just be adding a splash of water to it. So this ragu has now been bubbling away for the past 2 hours, and we're about to add the last ingredient to it. And this might surprise you, but we're adding in some milk. Italians use it to tenderize the meat and balance the acidity of the tomatoes. So the milk goes in, and then we want to let this simmer for about another 5 minutes, not much longer. And in that time, while this is simmering, we can talk pasta. Now, seeing as the spaghetti bolognese does not exist in Italy, we are not using a spaghetti, but rather tagliatelle. And that is the perfect partner for this sauce. Now, I've got some fresh tagliatelle here. You can use dried, of course, that works too. And let's now get the pasta ready and we can start to serve. So I'm just gonna salt this water quite generously, as we want it to taste like the sea. And at this point, I'm just gonna season the ragu as well with some salt and some freshly ground pepper. Now the pasta can go in, and this really doesn't take long to cook. About 3 minutes is all it takes. And now for the best part, combining the pasta and the sauce. Now I'm just going to use a different pan just for the sake of simplicity, as it's easier to bring it all together. So pasta goes in. And I'll just get some of that ragu on. Just a tad bit more of the pasta. Now don't forget to save some of that pasta water, as it's liquid gold, and if your ragu is a little dry, you can use that pasta water to loosen it up. So I'm just gonna make sure that every strand of that pasta is covered with that beautiful ragu. And now we can start to plate. Now a final touch of Parmigiano Reggiano, which takes this over the top. And just look at this plate of food. In fact, this is love in a bowl. So now let's just taste test. That depth of flavor and the richness, that's what makes this an absolute classic. Now I hope you've enjoyed this recipe as much as I've enjoyed making it, and if you did, make sure you give this a thumbs up, share it with your loved ones, and if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more delicious recipes just like this. I'll be seeing you in the next one really soon. Until then, look after yourselves, and remember, the secret ingredient is love.